Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. Admiral Drays stood motionless on the command deck of the Sovereign Dominion, his crystalline skin reflecting the blue glow of Earth displayed on the massive view screen. The primary vessel of the Galactic Federation's diplomatic corps wasn't technically a warship, but it carried enough firepower to level a small continent. Not that he expected to need such capabilities for this mission. "Status report," he commanded, his translucent fingers tapping rhythmically against the obsidian command console. Lieutenant Pax approached with practiced precision. "The primitive detection systems have registered our presence, Admiral. Their global communications have increased by 287% in the last hour." "Expected," Drays replied. "Prepare the welcome transmission. Remember the Council's directive: minimal resistance, swift integration." The Federation had been expanding its borders for millennia, absorbing thousands of worlds into its collective. Earth represented nothing special, just another industrializing world unfortunately positioned along the Federation's latest expansion corridor. "Their defensive capabilities," Drays inquired almost as an afterthought. "Negligible, Admiral," Commander Votz replied, her forearms simultaneously manipulating different control stations. "Primitive orbital platforms, roughly 50 armed satellites, and ground-based projectile weapons. Technology assessment places them approximately 300 orbital cycles behind standard Federation capabilities." Drays permitted himself a small gesture of satisfaction, the subtle opening of his tertiary eye. "Broadcast the integration proclamation. Let's see what these humans are made of." On Earth, Director Josephine Blackwell floated in the command center of Global Defense Station Sentinel, watching with calculated intensity as the alien fleet positioned itself beyond lunar orbit. In her 20 years with the United Nations Space Defense Initiative, she had meticulously prepared for this moment. "Their broadcasting director," announced Lieutenant Harrison, sweat beading on his dark forehead despite the station's climate controls. "Put it through," Blackwell ordered, her Australian accent clipped and professional. The main screen flickered, revealing a being unlike anything in humanity's collective imagination. Admiral Drays's translucent crystalline features shifted subtly as he spoke, his voice resonating with unnatural harmony. "People of Earth, I am Admiral Drays of the Galactic Federation. Your world resides within territory we now claim. We extend an invitation to join our collective peacefully and benefit from our advanced civilization. Your response is expected within 12 standard rotations of your planet." The transmission ended abruptly. Blackwell's expression remained unchanged, but her mind raced. "Get me a secure line to the Security Council immediately." Within hours, she found herself addressing the leaders of Earth's major powers from the station's conference room. "Their technology appears centuries beyond our public defense systems," Blackwell reported, emphasizing the word public. "However, they've approached with a relatively small fleet, suggesting they don't anticipate significant resistance." General Tandika Nkosi of the African Alliance leaned forward. "Then perhaps we should show them something unexpected." The Russian president nodded in agreement. "The Sentinel network was always meant to be merely our first line of defense." "Admiral Drays," Lieutenant Pax interrupted Drays's contemplation of the blue planet. "The humans are requesting additional time to consider our proposal." "Granted," Drays responded dismissively. "Extend their deadline by another rotation. Let them debate among themselves. The outcome remains inevitable." Commander Votz approached with unusual hesitation. "Admiral, our sensors are detecting unusual activities on the planet's surface and beneath their oceans." "Elaborate," Drays commanded. "Several large underground facilities have suddenly activated. Ocean-based platforms are moving, and their orbital station is powering systems previously dormant." Drays's primary eyes narrowed. Precautionary measures. Every species attempts some show of strength before accepting reality. Before Votz could respond, alarms blared across the command deck. "Energy spike detected," Lieutenant Pax shouted, "multiple launch signatures from Earth's surface." Drays turned sharply toward the tactical display, from their known military installations. "Negative," Votz replied, her voice tight with surprise. "Launches originating from 27 distinct locations, most previously unidentified as military facilities." On the display, dozens of trajectories converged toward the Federation's scout vessel Aurora, which had moved closer to inspect one of Earth's orbital platforms. "Engage defensive systems," Drays ordered calmly. These were primitive weapons, nothing the Federation's shields couldn't handle. The Aurora's captain appeared on the communication screen, Admiral, these projectiles contain unexpected energy signatures. Our shields are. The transmission dissolved into static as multiple explosions enveloped the scout ship. When the flashes subsided, the aurora was gone. Silence fell over the command deck. They destroyed one of our ships, Lieutenant Pax whispered, his crystalline features clouded with disbelief. Drays stared at the tactical display as more launches appeared from Earth. Pull back beyond their weapons' range, he ordered, his voice losing its harmonic quality. All vessels, defensive formation Delta. As the Federation fleet retreated, Drays' mind struggled to process this unprecedented development. In 3 centuries of expansion, no pre-interstellar civilization had ever destroyed a Federation vessel. On Earth, cheers erupted in command centers across the planet as the alien fleet retreated beyond lunar orbit. Director Blackwell maintained her composure. This was merely their diplomatic contingent, she cautioned the celebrating staff. Their response will be significant. But they've seen what we can do now, Lieutenant Harrison replied. Blackwell shook her head. No, Lieutenant, they've only seen what we allowed them to see. The real question is, how will they respond when they discover what humanity is truly capable of? In the conference room below, General Nkosi addressed world leaders. Operation Scattered Shield worked precisely as designed. The Federation believed they were facing a single planetary defense system, when in reality, they faced dozens of independent military powers, the Indian Prime Minister completed, each with unique technology and tactics developed through centuries of unfortunately fighting each other. The American president nodded, and they've only encountered our conventional forces. The specialized divisions remain untouched. As the Federation fleet retreated to safety, Admiral Drays faced an unfamiliar sensation: doubt. These humans were unlike any species they had encountered before. Their defense wasn't centralized or predictable. Somehow they had concealed their true military capabilities, revealing them only when absolutely necessary. Admiral, Commander Vots approached. The Council demands an immediate report. Drays straightened his posture. Inform them that we have encountered an unusual situation, one that will require a significantly larger integration force. As he turned back to the view screen, Drays studied the small blue planet with new respect. The Federation had made a critical error in their assessment. Humanity wasn't just another primitive civilization awaiting enlightenment. They were something entirely different. And the Federation had just awakened them. Fleet Commander Navin Zivon paced the elegant crystalline corridor of the Federation diplomatic ship, waiting to be summoned before Admiral Drays. The unprecedented defeat of their scout vessel had sent shockwaves through the entire fleet. In his 3 centuries of military service, Zivon had never witnessed a pre-interstellar civilization successfully destroy advanced Federation technology. The doors slid open silently, revealing the Admiral's private chambers. Inside, holographic displays showed the blue planet from multiple angles, with particular focus on military installations that hadn't appeared in their initial scans. Commander Zivon, Drays acknowledged without turning, your intelligence assessment was catastrophically flawed. Zivon maintained his composure, though his violet skin darkened slightly with emotion. Admiral, the humans concealed their military capabilities through methods we've never encountered before. They appear to maintain multiple independent defense systems, each controlled by different planetary regions they call nations. Explain, Drays demanded, his crystalline features refracting light in patterns that conveyed deep concern. Zivon activated a detailed hologram of Earth. Unlike unified civilizations, humans have divided their planet into approximately 195 sovereign territories, each with independent military doctrine, unique weapon systems, and distinct tactical approaches. What we engaged wasn't a planetary defense force. It was dozens of separate armies coordinating temporarily. Impossible, Admiral Drays muttered. No species maintains such inefficiency into their technological age. The inefficiency appears to be their strength, Zivon continued. Our unified approach was countered by weapons designed to fight other humans, each optimized for different environments, strategies, and containment scenarios. On Earth, Director Blackwell assembled with the Joint Defense Council in the underground facility beneath Geneva. Representatives from 37 nations reviewed tactical data from their encounter with the Federation fleet. The Russians' hypersonic anti-ship missiles caught them completely off guard, General Nkosi observed, studying the battle analytics. Colonel Rodrigo Mendes of Brazil nodded in agreement, as did the Chinese quantum disruption arrays. They clearly expected standardized defenses, not our patchwork of competing military technologies. That patchwork is precisely why we survived, Blackwell noted. Each nation developed weapons to counter other human militaries, creating diversity they couldn't anticipate. Field Marshal Winston Okonkwo of Nigeria leaned forward. The question remains, how will they respond? They've retreated beyond Saturn, but long-range sensors indicate significant quantum communications. They're calling for reinforcements. Blackwell's expression remained grave. Then we activate Phase 2 of Scattered Shield. Every nation must deploy their classified weapons systems, the ones even other human governments don't know about. In the distant reaches of the solar system, Admiral Drays faced the Federation Expansion Council through quantum entanglement communication. 7 beings of different species stared at him with expressions ranging from disbelief to barely controlled fury. "Your failure is unprecedented, Admiral," stated High Counselor Thrix, his gaseous form swirling violently within his containment field. "A pre-interstellar civilization should never have been capable of destroying Federation technology." "These humans are anomalous," Drays replied, projecting confidence he no longer fully felt. "Their military development followed a unique evolutionary path. While most species develop unified planetary defense systems as they advance, humans maintained separate military powers competing against each other." "Explain the tactical significance," demanded Counselor Ezra, her crystalline form similar to Drays's but ancient and far more complex. Commander Zivon stepped forward. "Instead of facing one military mind with predictable doctrine, we face dozens of different tactical approaches simultaneously. Each human nation developed weapons to counter other humans, resulting in wildly diverse capabilities." Intelligence Analyst Lox, a small being with 6 eyes arranged in a circle around its head, displayed new sensor data. "We've detected at least 47 distinct weapon systems in their initial response alone. Our standard countermeasures were ineffective because each required different defenses." The council chambers fell silent as the implications became clear. "The humans have inadvertently developed the perfect defense against unified expansion forces," Counselor Ezra finally said. "Their internal conflicts produced military diversity we cannot easily counter." High Counselor Thrix's gaseous form pulsed with anger. "This changes nothing. Deploy the 7th Expansion Fleet. No primitive species will resist Federation integration." On Earth, preparations accelerated as nations revealed military capabilities previously hidden even from allies. In Kazakhstan, enormous underground hangar doors opened for the first time, revealing spacecraft with technology derived from decades of classified research. Beneath the Antarctic ice, thermal signatures indicated massive power systems activating. In international waters, submarine platforms surfaced, carrying vertical launch systems for weapons unlike anything in public military records. Director Blackwell addressed the expanded Joint Defense Council, now including representatives from every nation on Earth. "Humanity has spent millennia fighting itself," she stated, surveying the room. "We've developed weapons for every conceivable scenario, not just the ones that made strategic sense. Our irrationality and division may have accidentally prepared us for this moment." General Javier Rodriguez of the European Defense Force displayed the latest intelligence. "Federation reinforcements are approaching, nearly 300 vessels, including what appears to be dedicated war platforms. They'll reach our solar system within 72 hours. Then we have 72 hours to deploy our most unlikely weapons," Field Marshal Okonkwo responded. "The ones too strange, too specialized, or too ethically questionable to have ever been used against other humans." In a secured section of the meeting, representatives revealed capabilities that stunned even senior military leaders. Japan's quantum entanglement disruption system, India's gravitational manipulation platforms, Brazil's autonomous nanite swarms, technologies developed in isolation, often for conflicts that never materialized. "Our strength isn't just our diversity," Blackwell observed. "It's that we've prepared for scenarios that never made logical sense. We've built weapons for enemies that never existed until now." Aboard the Federation command ship, Admiral Drays reviewed the deployment of the 7th Expansion Fleet, the largest military force assembled in over a century. 300 warships carrying enough firepower to subjugate a dozen planets. "The humans demonstrated impressive capabilities," he acknowledged to his command staff. "But they've revealed their hand. We now understand their approach and can counter it." Commander Zivon wasn't convinced. "Admiral, there's something troubling in our latest intelligence. The energy signatures we're detecting from Earth are changing. New installations are activating daily, ones with completely different signatures than those we encountered previously." "Explain," Drays demanded. It's as if, Zivon hesitated, it's as if they held back their primary weapons during our first encounter. What we faced might have been merely their conventional forces, not their specialized weapons. Admiral Drays stared at the holographic display of Earth, this insignificant blue planet that had somehow managed the impossible. For the first time in his distinguished career, he felt genuine uncertainty about the outcome of a military engagement. How could a species that fights itself so consistently unite so effectively against an external threat? He wondered aloud. Intelligence analyst Locke offered an unsettling possibility. Perhaps because they've spent millennia preparing to fight each other, they've inadvertently created the perfect defense against us. Each human nation developed weapons to counter other human nations, resulting in a planet with thousands of different weapon systems, each designed to overcome different defenses. As the seventh expansion fleet accelerated toward Earth, neither side fully understood what was coming. The Federation expected to face a more significant version of what they'd already encountered. Humanity prepared to reveal military capabilities that even neighboring nations had never witnessed. The galaxy was about to witness something unprecedented. A primitive species that had spent its entire history divided against itself suddenly united against a common enemy. With a diversity of weapons and tactics no unified civilization could possibly anticipate. The Galactic Federation's War Council convened in the vast strategic chamber of the command vessel Indomitable. 12 fleet commanders from across the Federation gathered around a three-dimensional hologram of Earth, their diverse physiologies reflecting the multitude of worlds united under Federation rule. Admiral Drays stood at the center, his crystalline form rigid with determination. The 7th Expansion Fleet will reach Earth orbit in 18 hours, he announced, his voice resonating with artificial confidence. This represents 30% of our total military capacity, far beyond what any pre-interstellar civilization could possibly withstand. Fleet Commander Galax, a massive being with scaled skin and 4 neural interfaces protruding from his skull, rumbled with skepticism. Yet this same civilization destroyed one of our vessels with primitive technology. We cannot dismiss this anomaly. Not primitive, corrected Intelligence Director Myra, her gelatinous form sliding forward. Unlike most Federation species who had evolved physical bodies, Myra's people existed as consciousness within controlled protoplasm. Our analysis indicates their weapons are simply unconventional. The hologram shifted to display recordings from their first encounter with Earth's defenses. Federation analysts had identified 47 distinct weapon systems deployed during that brief engagement. These humans have developed along an evolutionary path we've never encountered, Myra continued. Most species unify their military doctrine as they advance technologically. These humans maintained competitive military development between regional powers, resulting in weapons designed specifically to counter other human technologies. Admiral Drays gestured to the tactical display. Nevertheless, our approach remains sound. We will deploy in standard hemispheric containment formation, targeting their major power centers simultaneously. Their diverse weapons may have surprised us once, but no primitive species can withstand concentrated assault from 300 warships. Intelligence analyst Locke stepped forward hesitantly, his 6 eyes blinking in sequence, a sign of anxiety in his species. Admiral, there's something troubling in our latest intelligence. We're detecting massive energy signatures from locations that showed no military activity during our initial scan. Explain, Drays demanded. It appears the humans are activating previously dormant defense systems, Locke replied. Many with energy signatures unlike anything we encountered in the first engagement. I believe, he hesitated, I believe they may have shown us only a fraction of their true military capability. Silence fell over the War Council as the implications became clear. Meanwhile on Earth, Director Blackwell stood in the Global Strategic Command Center deep beneath the Urals. Representatives from 195 nations surrounded her, many seeing each other's classified military capabilities for the first time. The Federation fleet will reach our orbit tomorrow, she announced. We've analyzed their approach vector. They're coming in force, hundreds of vessels in standard formation. General Hiroshi Tanaka of Japan's Special Defense Force studied the tactical display. They still believe they're facing a primitive unified defense. They haven't realized our true strength. Which is precisely our advantage, Field Marshal Okonkwo added. For millennia, humans prepared for wars against each other, conflicts requiring wildly different approaches. The Federation evolved through consensus and unity. They cannot comprehend our chaotic military development. Colonel Valentina Petrova of Russia's Strategic Deterrence Command stepped forward. The quantum disruption array is deployed. 53 platforms in geosynchronous orbit disguised as communications satellites. They've never been activated at full capacity, even we weren't certain of their effectiveness. Similar reports came from around the room. India's gravitational manipulation generators, Brazil's atmospheric ionization grid, Canada's polar electromagnetic pulse platforms. Technologies developed for scenarios that had never materialized, often considered too specialized or extreme for conventional warfare against other humans. This diversity is our shield, Director Blackwell observed. No single approach to warfare could have produced such varied capabilities. Our division, our greatest historical weakness, may prove our salvation. Dr. Elijah Washington, head of the United Nations Scientific Council, displayed a complex analysis on the main screen. We've identified a critical vulnerability in Federation technology. Their vessels use a standardized shield frequency modulation, efficient against conventional weapons, but potentially vulnerable to precisely calibrated attack from multiple fronts using different wavelengths. A weakness no unified civilization would have discovered, Blackwell noted, because only a divided species would develop dozens of competing weapon systems operating on different principles. In orbit around Mars, Admiral Drays studied the final battle preparations with growing unease. Something about this situation felt wrong, a feeling he'd learned to trust through centuries of military service. Commander Zivon, he summoned his intelligence officer. What percentage of Earth's military capabilities do you believe we encountered in our first engagement? Zivon hesitated. Based on current energy readings and newly activated installations, perhaps 20%, Admiral. 20%, Drays repeated quietly. And what percentage of their capabilities do our current battle plans account for? Approximately 60%, based on observed signatures and projected technologies. Drays's crystalline features hardened, which means nearly 40% of their potential remains unknown to us. That is correct, Admiral. For a species that had barely achieved limited space travel, to possess such military complexity was unprecedented. The Federation had conquered worlds with far more advanced technology through simple, overwhelming force. But those civilizations had developed along predictable paths, unified planetary governments with standardized defense systems. These humans were different. Their chaotic, competitive development had produced a defensive capability unlike anything the Federation had encountered in 10,000 years of expansion. Adjust our approach, Drays ordered suddenly. Abandon hemispheric containment. We'll concentrate our forces on their primary power centers, North America, Asia, and Europe simultaneously. But Admiral, Commander Zivon objected, that contradicts standard expansion doctrine. It would leave our flanks exposed and… Standard doctrine assumes standard opposition, Drays interrupted. These humans are anything but standard. We cannot fight them as we would a conventional adversary. On Earth, the final preparations were complete. For the first time in human history, every nation's military operated under unified command. Ancient enemies coordinated defense systems. Classified technologies were shared across borders. A species that had spent its entire existence fighting itself now turned its collective military genius against an external threat. Director Blackwell addressed the Global Command Center. The Federation fleet will reach our orbit in 3 hours. They expect to face a more substantial version of what they've already encountered. They don't understand that what they saw was merely our conventional response, the tip of the spear. And now they face the blade itself, General Nkosi added grimly. The tactical display showed Federation vessels arranging themselves in an unexpected formation, concentrated attack groups rather than the standard containment pattern predicted by Earth's analysts. They're adapting, Colonel Mendez observed. They recognize conventional tactics won't work against us. But they still don't understand what they're truly facing, Field Marshal Okonkwo replied. They believe they're fighting a primitive unified species that somehow developed diverse weapons. They haven't grasped that they're facing dozens of completely different military philosophies simultaneously. Blackwell nodded. And that's why we'll win, not because we're more advanced, we're not because we're stronger, we're not that either. We'll win because we're messy, inefficient, competitive, because humanity never agreed on the right way to fight a war. Throughout Earth's history, this diversity had caused untold suffering as humans fought each other. But against an external threat expecting unified resistance, it became their greatest strength. No single countermeasure could defend against weapons developed by competing nations for different purposes, operating on different principles with different tactical philosophies. As the Federation fleet entered Earth's outer defense perimeter, Admiral Drays watched the tactical display with growing concern. Their sensors detected hundreds of different weapon signatures activating simultaneously across the planet's surface, orbiting platforms, and even from positions beyond the moon. It's as if we're facing dozens of different species simultaneously, Commander Zivon observed, his voice tight with tension. No, Drays responded quietly. We're facing something far more dangerous, a single species that thinks like dozens. One that developed weapons to use against itself, creating capabilities no unified civilization would ever conceive. The first salvos from Earth's defense systems reached the Federation fleet, a chaotic symphony of different weapons technologies striking simultaneously. Quantum disruption fields disabled propulsion systems on 17 vessels. Gravitational manipulation beams crushed the hulls of 11 more. Nanite swarms infiltrated shield harmonics of another 30 ships, shutting down critical systems. And behind these attacks came hundreds more, each using different principles, different approaches, targeting different vulnerabilities. For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Drays faced a terrifying realization. The mighty Galactic Federation, which had subjugated 1,000 worlds through overwhelming force, might have finally encountered a species it could not easily defeat. Not because these humans were more advanced or powerful, but because they had spent millennia preparing for wars that never happened, against enemies that never existed, creating weapons that no rational, unified civilization would ever have developed. As his flagship shuddered under multiple impacts, Drays realized that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology. It was their disunity. Admiral Drays' flagship Indomitable shuddered as another wave of disparate energy signatures slammed against its shields. Warning lights bathed the command deck in crimson. Around him, the tactical display showed Federation vessels falling to Earth's bewildering array of defenses. 37 capital ships lost, Commander Zivon reported, his voice hollow with disbelief. 92 support vessels critically damaged, shield harmonics failing across the fleet. Impossible, Fleet Commander Galax growled, his scaled skin dulling with shock. These are primitive beings, they've barely left their own atmosphere. Primitive in technology, perhaps, Intelligence Director Myra observed, her gelatinous form pulsing with rapid analysis patterns. But extraordinarily advanced in warfare. Look at their attack pattern, there is no pattern. Each weapon operates independently, targeting different vulnerabilities simultaneously. On the main view screen, Earth's defenses unfolded with chaotic precision. Orbital platforms unleashed weapons that distorted spacetime itself. Ground-based installations fired projectiles that somehow bypassed Federation shields. Submarine-launched missiles split into autonomous swarms that adapted to countermeasures in real time. They're not coordinating, Drays realized suddenly. At least, not in the way we understand coordination. Each human nation is deploying its own unique weapons, developed independently over centuries of competition against other humans. Tactical Officer Jernax, whose species communicated through bioluminescent pulses, flashed urgently. Admiral, new energy signatures detected. The humans are deploying something from their polar regions. The viewscreen shifted to show massive installations emerging from beneath Arctic ice and Antarctic research stations. Weapons platforms that dwarfed anything previously detected. They've been hiding their primary defense systems, Drays whispered. Everything we've encountered until now was merely their conventional response. On Earth, Director Blackwell stood in the Global Command Center, watching the Federation fleet's formation disintegrate under humanity's onslaught. Around her, military leaders from every nation monitored their specialized weapons systems, technologies previously hidden even from allies. The Antarctic Gravitational Inversion Array is online, announced Commander Octavia Jensen of the International Polar Defense Force, targeting their command vessels. Field Marshal Okonkwo nodded grimly, activate the system. Across viewing screens worldwide, humanity witnessed something extraordinary, a rippling distortion enveloping 20 Federation warships. For a brief moment, nothing happened. Then, as if reality itself rejected their presence, the vessels imploded, crushed by forces that inverted their own gravitational fields. North American Quantum Disruption Network fully charged, General Rodriguez reported from his position at the American console, targeting their remaining battle groups. Blackwell gave the authorization, execute. From seemingly insignificant satellites deployed throughout Earth's orbit, invisible quantum fields expanded, targeting the precise frequency of Federation shield harmonics. 30 more ships suddenly lost power, their advanced technology rendered useless by weapons designed specifically to counter quantum-based systems. They're retreating, Colonel Petrova announced, unable to keep the wonder from her voice. The Federation fleet is withdrawing beyond lunar orbit. A cheer began to build in the command center, but Blackwell raised her hand for silence. This isn't over. We've bloodied their nose, but a civilization capable of interstellar travel won't be defeated so easily. On the Indomitable, Admiral Drays made the most difficult decision of his military career. Order all remaining vessels to withdraw to safe distance. Maintain observation positions beyond their weapon range. Admiral Commander Zivon protested. The Council ordered Earth's immediate integration. We still have significant forces remaining. And they have weapons we haven't even seen yet, Drays replied sharply. This situation requires reassessment. These humans— He paused, searching for words to describe what they were witnessing. These humans represent something unprecedented in galactic history. As the remnants of the Federation fleet retreated to safety, Drays opened a direct communication channel to the Federation Council. The 12 ancient beings who directed the Federation's expansion stared at him with expressions ranging from shock to outrage. "You've failed, Admiral," High Counselor Thrix declared, his gaseous form swirling violently. "A pre-interstellar civilization has defeated our primary expansion fleet." "Not defeated," Drays corrected. "Forced to reconsider our approach. These humans represent something unique in our experience, a species whose greatest strength emerged from their greatest weakness." Intelligence Director Myra stepped forward. "Counselors, I've completed my analysis of human military evolution. Unlike every other species we've encountered, humans never unified their military development. Instead, competing nations developed wildly different approaches to warfare, resulting in weapon systems that target different vulnerabilities simultaneously." "Explain the significance," demanded Counselor Ezra. "Our military doctrine is based on unified response to unified threats," Myra explained. "These humans effectively deployed over 200 different military doctrines simultaneously. No single defensive approach could counter such diversity." The council chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. "Are you suggesting," Counselor Ezra finally asked, "that a species divided against itself has developed the perfect defense against unified expansion forces?" "That is precisely what we've observed," Drays confirmed. On Earth, Director Blackwell met with global leaders in emergency session. The Federation fleet had withdrawn but remained in the outer solar system. Humanity had won a significant victory, but at what cost? "We've revealed every classified weapons system on the planet," General Tanaka observed. "Technologies nations spent decades developing in secret." "A necessary sacrifice," Field Marshal Okonkwo replied. "Without full deployment, we couldn't have repelled their fleet." President Eleanor Montgomery of the United States studied the tactical data. "The question remains, what happens next? They've retreated, not surrendered. A civilization capable of interstellar travel must have resources beyond what we've seen." Blackwell nodded grimly. "Which is why we need to consider our next steps carefully. We've demonstrated our capability to defend ourselves, but not our capacity for peaceful coexistence." To everyone's surprise, the communication system activated, showing Admiral Drays' crystalline face on the main screen. "Director Blackwell," the alien commander addressed her directly, "the Federation requests direct diplomatic contact." Murmurs spread through the assembly. This was unprecedented. The Federation had previously demanded submission, not negotiation. "Admiral Drays," Blackwell responded cautiously, "we are prepared to discuss peaceful relations between our civilizations." The alien's features shifted in what might have been a smile. "The Federation has reassessed Earth's status. Your species has demonstrated unexpected capabilities." "We prefer peace," Blackwell stated firmly. "But as you've witnessed, we are prepared to defend ourselves if necessary." "Indeed," Drays acknowledged. "The Federation Council has authorized me to propose a new designation for Earth and its solar system, not as a subject territory, but as a sovereign partner with protected status." Shocked silence fell over the assembly. In 10,000 years of expansion, the Federation had never offered such terms to a pre-interstellar civilization. "Your species represents something unique, Director Blackwell," Drays continued. "A different path of evolution than we've encountered before. Where other worlds unified and standardized their development, humanity's competitive diversity created something extraordinary." President Montgomery stepped forward, and this proposal, it recognizes Earth's independence. "With certain provisions for technological exchange and defensive cooperation," Drays confirmed. "The Federation believes humanity has much to teach us about alternative approaches to problem solving." As negotiations began, Blackwell reflected on the irony of their situation. Throughout human history, warfare between nations had caused untold suffering and destruction. Yet that same competitive development had inadvertently prepared humanity for this moment, creating a defensive capability no unified civilization could easily overcome. Our greatest weakness became our greatest strength, she observed quietly to Field Marshal Okonkwo as diplomats from both sides began formal discussions. Perhaps that's the lesson in all this, he replied thoughtfully. The Federation achieved greatness through unity and standardization. Humanity achieved it through diversity and competition, different paths to the same destination. As the diplomatic teams worked, Admiral Drays stood at the viewport of his flagship, gazing toward the small blue planet that had forever changed the Federation's understanding of civilization. They were terrified of us, Commander Zivon remarked, joining him at the viewport. With good reason, Drays replied. We represented everything they feared, a powerful force demanding their submission. Now, Drays's crystalline features reflected the distant light of Earth's sun. Now, Commander, we have the opportunity to learn from a species that took a completely different evolutionary path, one that proves there are multiple routes to greatness. The Galactic Federation had arrived expecting to find a primitive world ripe for integration. Instead, they discovered a species whose chaotic competitive development had created something unprecedented, a civilization whose greatest strength emerged from its greatest apparent weakness. The Federation had been terrified by human forces, but what truly changed everything was the recognition that diversity and unity represented different but equally valid paths to advancement. Earth would join the galactic community not as a subject, but as a partner, bringing its unique perspective to a civilization that had never before understood the power of difference. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.